Right, before watching these videos, please go and watch the first one, right? The link is in the description below. This is the second part of the c4 game of the London system, right? So after d4, d5, we're going to make a recap quickly. Bishop f4, c5, e3, knight c6, and now c4, right? So we introduced this in the previous videos, in the previous video. Please go watch it. If you've watched it already, then we can move forward. Now we have to play knight f6, and after the move, pawn takes, knight takes, for reasons we've mentioned already, while the knight's attacking the bishop will have to go to g3, otherwise we're happy to just take more control of the square d4, take the bishop, disrupt the pawn structure of our opponent. So after bishop g3, we take the pawn takes back, we've isolated the pawn, and we play bishop f5, bishop and the knight going for the c2 square. Now, as mentioned, the move we're going through is bishop c4, which is the best move by white, and although we're still going to look at other moves just to see a few more patterns. After this move, knight d to b4, and in the previous video we went through bishop b3, and we realized it was a disaster for white. Best move, as mentioned already, is knight to a3 to put more defense of the square c2, which is being targeted a lot. And now we take the pawn with the queen. We already went through this, just mentioned at the very end of the previous video, and we went through the variation knight f3. Let's go through the best move by white, which is queen takes queen. Now we take back, obviously, and we're threatening to win the exchange already. Well, a clean rook. It also depends on if white manages to take the knight back eventually. Knight c2, then knight takes. Or if the knight doesn't take, well, we are taking the rook. So that's the threat, obvious threat, knight c2. So white will have to do something about that. Let's very quickly mention an idea that happens here, because a lot of white players in this situation, they have a feeling of resignation already, and they could play rook c1, rook d1. We're going to look at them. Let's quickly mention knight f3 if the white player tries to develop the minor pieces and try to go for a sneaky attack. Now we play knight to c2 check, and after knight takes, the idea of the white player is to finish the development, give up the rook, but finish the development completely and go for some threats. So for example, after king e2, we have to take the rook, but here there's a threat of rook to d1. So basically the rook doesn't take the knight, but the idea is bishop b5, which leads to a disaster, because then you have to protect with the bishop. The rook's attacking the whole file, but we have to protect the bishop, but then you're still going to lose the piece, and it's going to be a discover attack, and you're going to be checkmated probably. So that's the threat. And if they play this rook d2 move, so basically this idea of knight f3, king e2, and rook d1, one has to say that the black is winning here, definitely winning, but you have to play accurate. The move now is f6. This is a crucial move. Basically, it gives a spot for the king to go to, which makes the bishop unable to go to b5 with a threat, because then you play king f7, you're running no risks. Then you also have e6 available in case. So in the same variation, if instead of rook d1, which is a move that loses, to f6, if the rook takes the knight back, the white players can still argue that he's down the exchange, but he's got somehow, let's call them slightly better pieces, you know. So a move like that, we responded with a6. It's crucial that you be very careful to b5. So a6 is here to control b5. And now it's we're about -6 to -7. We're in a massive advantage. I just quickly mention some ideas on how to continue this endgame, and then we'll move on to the more serious line. A move like knight to d4. You wanna meet this move with rook to c8, right? You can ignore the bishop, because you just wanna, like, your opponent is improving the position of his pieces. You don't wanna withdraw the pieces. Allow him to come closer. I mean, you might as well give up the bishop, but you take the opponent bishop as well. And at least you get to develop the rook and put it on an open file. If the knight tries something like knight e5, attacking to f7, you just play e6. And that's just helping you to develop the last bishop. Then you can think of castling the king. And now, let's say after the best moves, bishop b3, black just develops the rook to d8. And you still have the idea of playing h5, h4, typical thing against the London. A move like rook to c1, trying to infiltrate the rook, is simply met by bishop d6. And of course, you're happy to swap everything. So after somebody tries rook to d1, these are just examples that I'm making to understand how to go about in this endgame. Right here, we're happy to swap everything. Bishop takes, rook takes, king takes, bishop takes. You play f6. The bishop has to move again, right? Wherever he goes, you're just fine with this move. And yeah, so let's go back. Let's make a recap, because I really love doing recaps. So after e3 and knight c6, and white plays c4, knight f6, and when the white player takes the knight, takes the pawn, you take back. The bishop moves for obvious reasons, and we take the pawn. Well, white will have to take. If they don't take, you can take back and just like improve your own material situation. And now bishop f5. We're looking at what happens after bishop c4. We will also look at other moves, but let's quickly go through one more line about this. So bishop to c4, knight to b4, knight a3, and now queen to d4, right? We're not far from theory. We're not far from the opening at all. Best move is queen take, knight takes, and earlier we went through knight f3 idea of developing everything quickly, and we could see that we can have a very good chance of holding things together. Let's go through something that looks better. For example, rook to d1, attacking the knight, developing the rook, saving the rook from the fork of the knight in c2. Black now plays a move that looks awesome. So you castle alongside. Don't worry about this bishop, it's not a threat. Don't worry about this pawn as well, because then we have a bunch of nasty discovered checks that lead to a lot of winning a lot of material. The idea now, for example, would be to play e5. If we could get to move again, we would play e5. Then we would love to go to c2 with the knight. And so this is a check. So let's say the knight takes, for example, we can take back with the bishop, we're attacking the rook. The rook will have to move, so the rook goes somewhere. And then whatever, rook goes to c1, then we can just play a check. And after the check, king can only go to one square, which is king f1. And now we play bishop to d2. And we're winning the exchange. The only move is rook to a1, which saves the rook for the moment. But this puts the white player in a condition of not being able to play anymore. After b5, you're attacking the bishop. The bishop will have to go away. Can't go to d3. And can't go away from the diagonal, because if the bishop moves away, then this is check. And the knight can block, but then you can take anyway, because it's there's double attack because of the knight as well. And if the bishop goes, let's say, to e2, well, the bishop can also go to b3, but then same thing. So if the bishop goes to e2, we take the bishop, and after the knight takes back, to make an example, and rook h to e8. This is the plan we're going for, right? The white player has no moves. He's completely lost in this position. And the goal here now is to go on with moves like pinning the knight and play f5, f4. And the white player will not be able to use this rook. A move like a4 is met by b4, for example, just so the rook doesn't get out ever. This rook cannot really do much. And black will exploit this majority on the pawns on the king side and go to an easy winning endgame. So going back to this position, this is only like move 9 or 10 from the opening. So you actually, once you've memorized this and understood the patterns, you're just going to encounter this a lot. As any time they play the c4 game, you can go to this direction. After a move like rook to d1, we talked about what the plan was. We have the castle. We talked about the plan, e5 and knight c2 and so on. So it's white to move. So white's best move is rook to c1. After rook to c1, preparing a discovered check with the bishop, black plays e5 anyway. The reason is that this discovered check now is not leading to a double check, checkmate something, because see, if we didn't have a pawn in e5, then this check would be deadly, because check and the bishop is cutting this diagonal as a double check. The king can't move anywhere, right? So it's over. But after e5, this bishop doesn't have the same influence, and the bishop check, he has nothing to worry, because we can move the king. The knight's defending the bishop. You might argue that the bishop can take the pawn for free, but that just gives us the possibility to develop our pieces. So for example, let's imagine the bishop takes the pawn, and now we're still under the threat of bishop e6. This time the bishop does have influence over this diagonal, but now it's over, because we're just going to play knight b to c6, attacking the bishop, and we have an amazing position. We've got a bishop that is good to go. The other rook will be able to join with check. And so, for example, let's imagine the bishop moving away. The bishop could take the knight. If the bishop moves away, just to make an example, we have this bishop takes knight. So, well, white has to take back, right? Otherwise, we just win the piece for free. And our development is fantastic. So now it's our move. We can do a check and just have fun now here, destroying the opponent, because we're just able to pin everything, right? Because after knight blocks, for example, we can take the knight, and after the bishop takes back, the bishop will be pinned. We can attack it further with the bishop to d3, just to make an example. If the king moves instead, then we play b5, right? Thematic move in this video. The bishop will have, well, the pawn is protected by the bishop, so if the bishop abandons the diagonal, then bishop b3 ends the game. And if the bishop goes back, well, not d3 is not possible. If the bishop goes back, you simply play king to b7, which allows this knight to be able to move. And now, no matter what, white, let's say white develops the knight, then we take a free bishop. If white doesn't in place something else, we will be able to take the bishop anyway and pin it, right? And pin whatever piece. So even the rook moving back or not moving, right? The idea is always the same. We're still gonna take this, and we're winning a piece unless white doesn't want to take back. But after this move, we'll be able to pin. And even if the rook had been in e1 or not, there's no way now for the rook to defend this further. Even if the rook had been here, we're pinning it, right? So we're going to play this move, and we're winning. So let's go back. So here we are. White played the best move in that position, which is rook to c1, and we played e5, completely careless of the double check because double check isn't doing much. We tried what happens after bishop takes. Let's try again, just so we can play, because we have to play knight b to c6 here. Earlier we went away with the bishop and it was the beginning of a disaster for white. What happens if they just take our knight? Well, in this case, we take the bishop with the rook. Our advantage is no longer -6 like it was in the previous line, the previous line, the one with bishop g3. We're still an advantage of -3 something here. So what can white do? There's plenty of moves, and as we said, this is as I've said in many occasions, this is an open end game, so there's just too many variations. It's impossible to go through them. But let's just talk about the ideas and why we have an advantage here. We have an advantage simply because the white king cannot castle, right? So let's just quickly mention some ideas. A move like knight f3 to attack the rook. The bishop is defended by the rook and by the knight, so we're not going to take it. Is met by rook e4 check, and we ruin white's plan of castling. So white will not be able to involve the other rook. If the king goes this way, then we've got this very lovely tactic here. Bishop takes knight, right? It's a free piece. If pawn takes back, we can take the bishop free. If rook takes and bishop makes a fork, right? Do we need to see it? Yeah, let's just do it very quickly. Rook takes, and then we do this. So let's go back. Okay, after knight f3, rook check. And if the bishop goes back to block and try to preserve the possibility to castle, then we're still just ahead in development too much. Because now we can take the knight again. And the pawn takes back, of course, because he lost the piece, and we play rook h to e8. We're in a super comfortable position. There's just too much pressure now. And white cannot castle anymore. And we're attacking the bishop. How can this bishop be defended? Let's try rook to c2. And now simply rook back to e7. There's an attack on the rook. The rook will have to move. Whatever happens, the bishop will go to d3, adding one more attacker to e2. Even if the rook goes to d2, we're still going to play bishop to d3. And there's too much attack on e2. We're winning here. And if the rook takes, then we're taking, but we have more active rooks and better pawn structure in here, although we're not going to need it. And we're going to start picking pawns in the second rank. So either f2 next move or e2 according to how white moves. Alright, let's go back. In this position, an idea could be to play knight e2, but this is met by bishop b4 check. And we're taking white's right castle away again, unless white plays knight to c3, but this is simply met by bishop takes knight, because the knight will no longer be defending the bishop and we're winning a piece because rook can take bishop. So after this move and king f1, we have a very simple plan. We play rook to d2 and we start grabbing each pawn. I don't know, any random move by white now, just any move, even the best moves, like say bishop f7, we play rook to f8, we attack the bishop moves away, putting more defense on the knight. These are just examples. We can just take the pawn with attacking the knight moves away, we can take the pawn, and we're just completely winning. So let's make the last recap, just so we understand how actually not far away we are from the opening. Knight c6 and then c4 is met by knight f6 in this video, and in the previous video we're still focusing on c takes d5, knight takes and bishop g3, we take, and we play bishop f5. We will go through moves like a3 and knight c3. I'll probably do it in the next video, which will come sooner than you think. After bishop c4, knight b4, right? We're already there. Only move by white is knight a3. If you want to have if you want to refresh your knowledge on what happens if white plays anything else and how quickly you can destroy white, just watch the first video. Now we take. Best move is to take. We've seen what happens if white doesn't take. Knight takes back. And we tried rook d1, we tried knight f3. Let's try once again rook d1. We will try rook c1 as last move, and then we will finish this video. After rook to d1, as we said, we have the castle. Now white's best move is rook c1, which is a bit of a joke because he could have played rook c1 immediately. We will go through rook c1, just bear with me one more minute. e5 is the best move now, we don't have to worry about the double check. And now white's best move is knight f3. We haven't seen this. Okay, so let's look at this. Best is to take the knight. Pawn takes back. We broke the pawn structure of our opponent, double isolated pawn. And now we play knight c6 to protect against potential double check. In this case, we'd be losing our light square bishop. Knight c6, and now white to play. Too many moves are possible, although very few make sense. Let's say that white will want to play his best move, which is the castle, so in order to activate the rook. Queens are off the board, so the king castle in this exposed line isn't really a problem. It's not going to be checkmated, right? It's just an ugly position. And the white player will want to activate his last rook. If he doesn't do so, we're still going to develop our pieces next. So let's say castle. Now we take the knight, and our best move is bishop to d3. So if the rook moves away, let's say rook here, white has to remember that he's losing this endgame, so we're happy to swap. We will take the bishop now, right? Bishop takes, and like a bunch of swaps will just favor black. We're winning because we got a majority of pawns here, majority of pawns this side, like not a majority, but with better place. Rook and then rook d4, right? We're going to produce a passed pawn, potentially play f6. Also, the usual plan of h4, h5, h4 is possible. So let's go back. If the bishop takes and we take here, and there's nothing stopping us from taking a3 and f3 in the next moves. Right, very last recap. I love doing recaps because we get to memorize the thing. e3, knight c6, and c4 is met by knight f6. Pawn takes, we take back. And we're attacking the bishop moves, we take, bishop f5. And after bishop c4, the knight moves. Knight a3, only move, queen takes, knight takes, and now the last thing we're going to try is rook to c1 immediately. This is the most accurate, although the advantage is still solid for black. Best move by black is a6. Idea eventually, not now, but eventually, is to play b5 and disrupt this bishop because we would love to play knight d3 check, right? So a6 is an idea. Let's see, let's look at a move. Like we looked at what happens after a move like knight f3, you know, there's no reason for white to get so ugly. So let's look at a move like knight e2 because white will want a castle. He hasn't been able to castle at all in these specific lines. Now we play knight d to c6. We're going back and it looks like white is going to be all right. So after castle, black plays g6. So let's try to understand what's the reason why we have an advantage of something like minus 350. It's because we have a majority of pawns this side. We'll be able to make this attack. We'll be able to get the pawns going. White's pieces are a little bit cramped. So if you think about it, the knight can't go to c2. There's two attackers. The knight can't go to b5. So this knight is kind of blocked. His only way out is to play b1, d2, or maybe b1, c3. So we'll have to waste a few tempos. It's not a coincidence that white's best move now is knight to b1. Best move by black is bishop to h6, attacking the rook. And now there's a few options. If the rook moves away, for example, we play bishop c2. And the rook cannot go to d2, d3, d4, d5, d6, d7. Each one of these squares is attacked. And if the rook moves once again to the only square available, we will play b5. Nothing stops us from going to d3 with the knight and win the game. So after the bishop h6 move attacking the rook, what happens if black plays knight f4 to stop that, right? We play e5. And again, we're winning material. What happens if white plays f4, play b5, bishop to b3 now, only square available. I mean, only square that makes sense. And now bishop back to g7, attacking the weakness. Knight b to c3 seems to make things kind of normal for the white player. We play knight a5, try to take away the bishop pair from our opponent, go to a red game where we got a majority of pawns. Remember, we're still a pawn up. Move like bishop to d5, for example, is met by rook to d8. We've got two attackers on d5. Bishop e4. We can take, and so seems like the white player has been able to give away the bishop pair in exchange of the bishop pair. But now we can play knight to c4. Our position is just much better. We really are attacking this pawn and we're trying to get more material. We also have a chance of going to e3. Looks awesome. So a move like b3 where the white player tries to save the pawn is met by knight e3 attacking the rook. Rook e1 is met by knight d3, winning the game. And rook going to f2 is also running into knight e3, winning the game. Rook f3 attacking the knight is met by knight a2, which attacks the rook and is threatening to win material. The rook cannot attack the knight in a1 because he gets taken. And after the rook moves away, we can save our knight. And yeah, let's have fun in this endgame. So here we are again after g6, and white plays best move knight b1, remaneuvering the knight. Black plays bishop h6, attacking the rook. And we saw what happens after the rook moves. We saw what happens after knight f4, after pawn to f4. We can also look at bishop f4, the last option, since the bishop is defended by the knight. The white player might want to rightfully neutralize this terrific diagonal with our bishop is. So after this move, we have to play bishop g7. We have no reason to give white developing chances. And after this move, knight b to c3 is the most logical move. We can play now bishop to d3. Excellent move. In fact, right now, bishop taking would be a mistake because of knight taking back. We have an attack on these two, but also on the b2 pawn. And so after the rook moves away, for example, to protect the pawn, we take the bishop, knight takes back, and black goes on with long castle. Here we have a solid advantage of about -5. It's a winning endgame simply because we have the extra pawn, majority on the king side, and bishop. It's an open game, so our bishop is going to be more useful than the knight. We've got nothing to worry after a move like knight to d5 is threatening the knight to go to e7 as well because our knight is pinned. We have to simply, very quietly play king b8, and we've got nothing to worry. This is one of those situations where there's just too many possible moves, so we're not going to be able to go through to cover everything. But of course, the idea here is that we're already completely winning, and with attacking the knight will have to move again. This is just to make an example. Black's idea here is to simply play eventually moves like e5, f5, e4. Black will be winning a lot of tempos whilst throwing these pawns. So for example, a move like rook c1 is met by a5, which wins the game because we're going to be winning a knight. One of the knight has to move and the other one will be taken. So, but that's just a blunder. Let's look at another move that looks just quiet, like knight e3. Nothing stops white from playing rook to d7, double up the rooks, reach the second rank, and I'll leave you to it. One last thing to mention, this very line, the one where the white bishop protected the rook by going to f4, forcing us to go back to g7, is that after bishop d3, what happens if the bishop moves back and refuses the swap? This is simply met by this excellent tactic, bishop c3. If the knight takes, we can win the exchange. If the pawn takes, we can take the knight and then we're still attacking the rook, so that will have a priority. And if the rook takes, same thing happening.